Okay, so let's start then. Thanks everyone for joining another cmBuilder workshop, right? So this is the best place for you to level up your skills and create amazing simulations and apparently laugh at our faces. I'm your host, Pedro Souza, and today's theme is Halloween, right? So grab your hard hats and your proton packs and let's chase away some ghosts of bad planning, okay? I love that I'm doing some monologues in the beginning right now. Okay, cool. so today our workshop agenda will be mainly tricks, right? So we're going to focus on some tricks and how to leverage the current tools of cmBuilder in different ways, right? So some housekeeping items over here. The recording will be available in 24 hours or like maybe less than that. And you can always check our previous workshops on YouTube. Have a lot of good stuff over there for you guys to check and explore new in different ways of like using cmBuilder, and you can use the QA or the chat for questions. I kind of like encourage using the chat because more people will be kind of like interacting with you. So we want to build a community over here, right? So the first trick is that actually we are gonna do some treats first. So I want to talk about some new navigation modes that are coming Monday, right? So some of you might have seen Javi showing this on the Key Feature Friday videos on LinkedIn. But what we are releasing on Monday is the new navigation modes where you will be able to interact with your 3D spaces in Builder in different ways, right? So we're gonna have the main mode, which is the orbit mode, and then we're gonna do the fly and the walk mode, right? So let me show you guys around how this works. And basically when this is on, you're gonna have like this new button over here on the corner so you can switch the navigation mode. Right now I am on orbit mode, so like these are the commands that I have on my mouse, right? So redefining the pivot and zooming in, zooming out and whatnot. And when I switch this to fly mode, now I'm gonna have different commands where I can move in this space in different ways. So like my mouse is not gonna rotate according to a point, it's gonna rotate according to my view. And I can use the keys WASD to go back, forward, left and right over here. And you can hit shift on your keyboard to like increase the speed of your flight, right? So as you can see over here, I'm flying through this scenario. And if I hit shift again, I'm gonna go in a slower speed, okay? So Q, in space, we'll move you up and down. So going like this, oh, sorry, up, Q in space, and E moves you down. And you can hit T on your keyboard to teleport to a specific spot. So you're gonna get this kind of like jumping mode over here where you can simply go to that location and so on, right? So this is not available yet, but it will be on Monday and you will be able to explore right away. Cool. The walk mode, when you click on it, you're gonna be brought to the ground. So I'm dropping over here from that height. And then you can use these other commands over here to walk through the scenario, right? So same commands, WASD, to navigate and walk through the whole thing. And you can shift or to increase the speed or decrease the speed. Another interesting thing about the walk mode is that you can jump things. So if I want to jump this fence, I can hit space and then I will jump on the fence. And this will allow also me to crouch with C or E on my keyboard over there. And the teleport is also available, right? So if I teleport to a place, I can go in and do that. If I get out of the building over here, I'm gonna drop inwards. Okay, so this was just like a quick demonstration, but let's see this now into context, right? So if I go to a milestone, let's say that I am gonna go a milestone where the interiors of this building are already being finished and whatnot. So let's go over here at this level where the interiors are finished, right? So in this level over here, I can to increase my kind of like visibility and things like that. When I am in an enclosed space like this, I like to go into the settings and increase the view of angle, the field of view, so you can kind of like see more things in your view. And then if we go into walk mode, I'm gonna now walk through these elements over here. I kind of like dropped to another level because I was in between the levels. But as you can see, I won't be able to go through walls. So I believe that in one of our releases, we will be able to open doors and things. I know actually doors, you can go through doors. Yeah, the software understands like from the IFC classification what are doors. So like you can actually go through doors if you need to. And you can crouch. So if you're gonna go like in vents and things like that, and so on and so forth. Cool. So to be fun to actually I was thinking about this like someone asked if you could carry like a weapon. I thought that like, it could be fun if we put like a drill or a shovel or some construction tools in the hand of like the person over here. Maybe in the future, let's see. But there you go. So this will be interesting for presentations and like you walking through like a model or like the site with your customer, and even with like to identify safety issues and things like that. But it's a more interactive way for you to consume the information on the 3D view. Cool. Okay, if you guys have any questions, please drop them in the chat. And Nikan, if you have anything to add, please let me know.
Yeah, I'll say we're excited about this one. It provides a different experience, basically the experience of someone actually on site. So you could do virtual site walks, which helps you identify hazards on site, look at pedestrian routes, look at the experience of someone essentially like, coming to the site. And then we've heard that it helps a lot with stakeholder communication and buy-in. So please use it once it's available and let us know what you think.
There you go. Awesome. So going to the next one. So these first three items over here are just like updates that are already available, right? So the next one would be the fill with selective slopes, right? So we had a lot of customers asking about this because before we had the fills, you couldn't actually select which slopes you wanted to activate on a fill or not. But now if you like draw a fill in the app, let's see, something like this, and you create that fill to a specific height, the adjust function here allows you to deactivate slopes that you don't want for that fill. So you can exactly how it works with the cuts. Now you can also deactivate and activate specific fields for different sizes of sides of your excavation operation. Okay, this is a quick one, but like it's quite important, especially for people that like have more complex earthwork kind of like things in operations to represent. Right before you had to actually create a cut to remove a few slope that you didn't want, but now you can actually select them directly from here. Okay, and the last update that I want to show is about the company notifications. This has been requested by like a bunch of like admins and so on because some people were getting flooded with like notifications about requests access to specific projects or requesting access to the platform as a whole and so on. So now we have in our in the homepage, the admins will be able to go in define who gets notified by what. So if you click over here, now we have this new menu on the company settings that is for company notifications. So you can have you can add and remove users here for the subscription notifications. So renewals, upgrades, subscription issues, or upgrade requests and things like that. These people here will be get notified. You can add more users to this list, right? And only admins can be added to this list. And in invitation notifications, it's like for people that want to request access to the platform or to projects and so on, you can put them in here. Okay, so smaller updates that goes a long way to help the quality of life of our admins out there. Cool. So now let's move on to some tricks, right? So today I want to explore a little bit of our splitting tool because I've seen some users kind of like using the splitting tool in several different ways, and sometimes we kind of like have a tendency of overthinking how things are supposed to be on the splitting tool, just because the like you might not know that you can combine a lot of splits into one single geometry and so on. So I want to use the example like this model from uh, that's a stadium, like just a bleacher model, and let's understand how we're going to split this guy, right? So if I go over here where I can see this model, I have already created a split version of it. So if I open the non-split version of this model and I select one of the bleachers, we're gonna select the whole thing, as you can see over here, right? So I actually, if I zoom in, I will see that this bleacher here is separated, right? So let's say that in your order of execution, you're gonna do each one of these parts separately, and then you're gonna go and move to the next level and so on and so forth. And if you wanna represent this in cmBuilder, you would need to split this, right? So I mean, maybe your first thought is to create splits that will kind of like isolate each one of these elements. So for example, maybe your first thought would be to, on the split geometry, we're gonna go here into edit beam model, and we're gonna go into the split function, and I'm gonna create a line, right? So right now I can create a line either placing this sketch on an object, which means that I can do uh, lines that are gonna split this horizontally, or I can do lines that split this vertically. But one thing that is very important is to understand that this, when you have objects selected over here, this will try to follow whatever shape that you hovering upon. So like if I hover my mouse and create a sketch over here, I'm gonna create like a sketch sloped like this. So it's very important that you understand where your sketch is located, because that's going to affect the way that things are going to be split. So what I prefer, if I'm doing horizontal splits, I'm going to go and create things on a Z plane. So I'm going to look directly from above, and going to create a Z plane over here, and I'm going to host it over here. So probably most of you would think that, okay, if I want to do this split for this guy over here, I'm going to do like, I'm going to draw a line that's going to go through this thing and then go exactly on this bore here, and then go into the next one. Let's say something like this, and then go up, right? So this would take a while for me to do, because I would need to do exactly the same thing for each one of these bleachers, right? But if I want to simplify this, I can use lines in a more smart way, in a smarter way, right? So I already created a template over here where the way that I would create these lines. So as you can see, I can get the same line to go from one side all the way to the other, and then keep on going this. So I can slice these two up, and then I have like a line over here in the middle that will separate this side from this side, but also will separate this side here from this side. And I need to create this rectangle around it, because if I don't, like this object over here will be connected with this other object over here, right? So this line that I created over here in the end will take the proper, like the extension of this line, and it will, like virtually that's what happened in the backend. Like this line will extend all the way up to here, and then this is gonna extend all the way up to here. So whatever is within this area is gonna be separated from the rest. So this is kind of like an idea that you guys can use in other projects, just to kind of like create these things fast, right? And I really suggest that you draw your lines, your split lines first as a 3D line tool, because it's easier for you to go back and change that without going into the split geometry tool and make those changes, right? So if I were to do this again from scratch, I would just create my line over here in the beginning. I'm gonna do it just for a few, okay? And since the kind of like the pour break over here is so thin, I can basically just do one big line here first, and then another big line here, even though that I know that I'm not going through like the actual thing. And then I'm gonna zoom in here, and then I'm gonna add a point onto this, and then I will go and like locate this point at that split. Then I'm gonna go here in the line, locate this point over here. So I'm making sure that this line is going exactly through the pour break, and then I would do this same thing on the other side, at a point. So a lot of people ask like how you can add points to lines on the sketch. You basically click on the line, and then you select any place on the line, and it will add, and it will create a point. I actually missed the line over there, but if I click over here, it will add a point to that line. Okay. So let me just finish this part over here very quickly. And let me see if this is okay. This is okay. And I'm gonna just do the one in the middle here. So that way I have like the same line helping me split more like than just one single area. Like I can do like more areas with the same thing and save a lot of time by drawing a bunch of things. And if you have geometries that you can use as a reference, you can also do this where I can like go into 3D mode, and I can select this line, and then I will snap it, and I'm gonna go and focus on that face over there, and then I'll snap it to that face. So now that line is going exactly through that face. If I want to put in the center, I'm gonna go and move over here. Okay, so if I hit confirm now, oh, this is a very big line. Let me just change that. Okay. If I go and confirm now and do this line over here, project this in the ground, and I will go into the split for my model. I will create a line, and I'm gonna do my Z-plane. Now to use this line as my template, I'm gonna go into project and select that line, and that line will be created like that. If I hit confirm and I do the split just like that, and confirm, this split will not create the result that I'm expecting. Uh, Actually, in this case over here, it did, because like it was, I didn't need to do the square, because like I didn't need to separate the the parts that much. But creating the square in the back end and link around will make sure that nothing's gonna get combined that you don't want, right? So like if I decided to divide these two over here, like maybe this part would be connected with this part if I didn't do the square on the surrounding. Okay, so this is just to show you that you can use the same line and position it to slice more parts of your model, and creating the templates over here will be a good idea. So just to review, I can show like how I would create my lines to split this whole model if I wanted to separate each one of these bleachers in one single operation. Okay. Hopefully this message came across well. Like I think that like got a little bit too technical over there in the middle, but if you guys have any questions, please drop on the chat, and I'll help. I'll answer, of course. Cool. So this would be some ideas and tricks for you guys to improve your splitting actions. Okay. So now let's go to massing tool. Some new tricks related to the massing tool. So I'm going to show here an example of a very detailed massing that just to show the power of what you can do with the massing tool in cmBuilder. In this project over here, there is no imported models other than the model for the surroundings over there. right? Everything that you see in the step-by-step over here, it was created inside the platform. So just so you can see the power of how far you can go with textures if you have the premium subscription and animations and creating a very well and polished kind of like view of your site, right? So for example, like creating these zones over here to represent the different areas, asphalt, grass, and so on and so forth. But the focus of what I want to show today is the masking tool. So if as I go through these steps, we can see that several elements related to the masking are being generated over here. So we have in this project specifically, the core of the building was going up first. So we created a masking to represent that core first, and then like to be executed first, and then the massing on the surroundings would represent the rest of the slabs and things like that, right? So this one over here is a massing with a zone projected on top of it to show like some texture related to the concrete and so on. And as we can move forward, we're going to see more steps of the massing showing up in the view. So over here, we can see the usage of the resources to create the walls, right? So showing the stage of like creating the metal stud over here. So we can use a combination of the masking tool and resources from the library to create things that have a lot more detail and like sends the message across of what's being executed. And as I go forward, we see the massing that shows like the structure of the building and whatnot. And then we move forward over here. We're going to see now the placement of balcony rails. Again, these are all elements from our library, right? So you have balcony handrails over here. You have windows and also some textures coming from the library as well. So here in the structural element category in our library, you're going to find like some concrete parts and so on and so forth, but you're also going to find some brick walls. And if you go in other categories of the building element category, you can see like different type of walls over here, insulated panels, masonry block walls, and whatnot. So all of these elements can provide you with more textures for you to use. And these, you don't even need like the premium subscription to use that because the textures are embedded on the resources. So you can place them around and so on and so forth like that. Okay. So as you can see over here, the balcony handrail has been placed. But let's say in a situation where I want to put in these balcony handrails and on this whole level over here, but instead of doing them individually like I did for this one, I want to do for the whole level, right? So I will go into the balcony handrail envelope, like where is it? Balcony, 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 balcony handrail. And instead of drawing like in the polyline tool, instead of drawing like just the shape of this one and then going into the next one and doing that as well and so on and so forth, right? So I could do that, right? I could just draw this shape over here, but this will take me some time because I will need to do this balcony as well, and then the other one, and then the ones below, and so on and so forth. So what I could do is just use like a little trick over here. So I'm going to take this handrail and I'm going to go in and I'm going to redraw it and I'm going to project the shape of this slab, and it will take the whole sketch of the slab, and I'm just going to go and offset this inwards a little bit without keeping the original line, just to bring the thing inwards. And when I hit OK, it creates the whole balcony handrail for the whole area over there. But the parts that I don't need are simply inside of the building. So it doesn't matter because I cannot see it, right? So this is just a way for you to understand that you can hide elements inside of other elements just to get across like the message of what you're supposed to do at that stage, like the balconies and things like that. But you save a lot of time, and it doesn't affect the visual aspect of it. It will affect your quantity takeoff, of course, if you change doing takeoffs from the tool. But in terms of visual representation, it's very accurate, and you can even adjust like it even further depending on what you want. If let's say that you wanted to adjust just this part over here, you can simply like bring it inwards and so on and so forth. So there you go. You have like a way of creating things a little bit quicker and so on and so forth. Okay, and for the textures here, you would use the brick wall resource, right? So the running brick wall resource, you can put that as either a line or a point. So you can do that as a line or as a point if you want to. As a line, you can simply project the elements like the whole facade panel over here, and then like you can go for these areas that are sticking out a little bit, you can go into the adjust function and reduce the length of the wall, because this is happening because the minimum length of each wall panel that we're placing over there is defined by this parameter. So if I make it smaller, like it will place the, you won't have to put like a whole 3 meter wall over there, right? So when you hit done, now I have that texture applied for that whole level, right? So in a situation where you want to be super detailist about this and like the level of details you want to be super high, where like when you place them the walls like a line, you're gonna get these outer corners to look like this, and that's why in here we place them as a point, so like just one wall at a time, so we could do the overlap of these little corners. But if you want to do things quicker and you're taking your snapshots a little bit like from afar, you can go ahead and adjust this to kind of like align with the wall over there. And then if this is a dynamic parameter, which I can adjust over here. Right now, this is a constant parameter, but if I can make this as a dynamic parameter, it means that on the next milestone, I can just go in and increase the height of this element to show different stages of execution, right? So as you can see over there, the one that is selected is changing the height. So you could just draw one wall and keep like improving the height to show the completion of other levels. Okay, any questions about that? Give it one, give it two. Nope. Awesome. Okay, cool. So these will be our massing tool best practices. Oh, and one thing about the windows that you see over here, again, also things that you're gonna find in our library. So the windows, you can place them as individual panels like this, right? So just you having them in the same height and things like that. And to place them in the same height, you can simply copy paste whatever elevation you have, apply to one and then apply to the other, or you can draw them as a line. Right, so when you do these as a line over here, for example, this is the same object, but this one is placed as a point because we wanted to just do one with that width and height and whatnot. But this one that is a little bit different and has a pattern of repetition over there, we just drew this as a sketch where you can place it on that location, and then you define the spacing between the center of each window at this command over here. And of course, you can go into the adjust function to adjust the height and width of the windows, right? And now, if you want to do this on the next level, you simply just like copy paste this element upwards. So let's say I'm gonna copy this one and then paste it over here. And the copy paste does not place things exactly in the same location, but I can place it at an elevation that I want. Let's say this elevation over here, and I can move this up a little bit. And if I want to align these new walls that I copy pasted to the same location as the one below, I can now go into the edit sketch, and then I'm going to redraw and project the sketch from the one below, right? So this will just go and make them at the same location. Then I can go here and then move them up and place whatever I want. Cool. So that way you have like several ways of you to like going into that. Sweet, for your question, no, because like if you do that flip, actually let's try. If I flip the direction, no, because like the flip the direction is going to only start the pattern from one point of my line instead of starting like on the point on the left, it will start on the point on the right, for example, right? So if I open the sketch over here, let's say that instead of starting from this point, it's going to start from this point, like the pattern, running from here all the way to the end instead of like running from here all the way to the end. So this won't fix that little corner. And even if you change the dimensions to fix that little corner, it would break this other one over here. You see, like this corner, it's open on this side, but this one is open on this side. So on the other side of the building, you would have like a different, the same problem, but on the other side, you know? So it's a kind of like a way, like there's no existing solution right now where it would fit all purposes. Basically, you would need to do some adjustments. Cool. And the reason why is because the same logic that applies to the creation of the pattern for these walls is the same logic of the fences, is the same logic of cones, and everything that you place as a line from the library. We have a kind of like an overarching logic that controls this whole thing, and we adapt this logic to the depending on the object that you're placing. Cool. Okay, so these will be our massing tool best practices if you want to up your game with massing, right? So you can add a bunch of more stuff in there to put textures, windows, balconies, and a bunch of new things to create these masses with more details. Now, let's go to the next trick, which is the image overlay creating a horizon. So this is a very interesting trick that I learned from a customer. And as we go over here, actually, we have a new question. Can you make the window look like it's falling at an angle to create hazards within the building, the build? I'm not sure if I understand, Carrie, what you're saying here. If you can maybe send a screenshot of like what the way that you want to show the window or explain this further. But I'm not sure if I get your question. Sorry. Maybe the wig is hiding my brain too much. Okay, so while
Pedro,
wait,
Pedro.
Yep.
So I think if I understand that, Carrie, correct me if I'm wrong. Do you want to basically show potential safety risks throughout the build? So, for example, like if there's no slab edge protection or there's some way to stop. Yeah. So you could rotate the angle of a window, put it on a spider crane, and say like if you're on, basically you can almost show a spider crane at the top, put having it rigged and say like if you're beyond the some sort of safety. I'm guessing it's for safety, Carrie, to show safety hazards. Yeah. So I think I'll try to dig it up, but the Hensel Phelps team did an amazing presentation on how they do safety kind of simulations within their site logistics plans for stuff like this, right? Like they use a use case of like someone gets injured at the bottom of the pit. How do they evac them out, right? So they had like a little simulation showing that. Anyways, sorry, Pedro, I jumped in there, but
No,
couldn't help
that's
myself.
good.
Choose spider cranes. Just search spider,
Yeah.
SPYDER. Yeah.
No, the Y, like it gave me the boom lift, but not the spider crane itself. But like this one is what we're looking for, right? So
Yeah.
it'll be something
Oh,
like
that's
this.
right.
And that's a huge spider crane for this for this action, but like I'm not sure if this is what you're talking about. But there you go. We could also move this guy here to help the other guy over there. Cool. Okay. Awesome. So next step is to create this image for the horizon over here, right? So this nice trick that I learned from a customer where basically what you can do is to bring in images like this of a horizon and you can place it in cmBuilder to create this kind of like effect, right? So the way they're gonna find the image, the proper image to use, it's up to you. In this case over here, this is Vancouver, so I literally just went online and searched for a Vancouver skyline background, a panoramic picture or something like that. But you guys can take your own pictures, you can extract that online, you can even ask ChatGPT to create that for you. But basically, I'm gonna do it from scratch on this other scenario, so you can understand how this what would be the best approach, right? So if I import this image onto this scenario, so Vancouver skyline. So first of all, the images will always come flat on the ground like this, right? So the first thing that we're gonna do is to rotate, and I'm gonna rotate on the Y direction, and I can either hold shift and rotate this manually, or I can just type in 90 degrees over here, and then this image will rotate, okay? So now it is just a matter of scaling it. I like to scale the image. It should be a little bit bigger than the area, than the map itself, just to get that sense, that kind of like effect of things being in the distance when you zoom in like this, right? For things to be detached from the map, it has to be a distance. And so I will just go ahead and scale this manually, and I can put like a scale, let's say, I don't know, something like this, 800. Let's put 800 in this, and then I'm gonna move this object to a location over there. But since I'm gonna do a square, I can already kind of like place things in the way that I want. So I'm gonna move this to the correct height. So let's say, not correct height, but like an approximated height. Let's say 150 meters over here. And the distance that this will have from the center of the map is going to be half of the width of that picture, right? So if I put this picture to have 800 meters as a width, my distance in Y is going to be 800 divided by 2, right? And the X position is going to be 0, right? That way, that picture is now centered with my map and right in the middle over there, and like have the distance from the center is going to be half of another picture. The reason why I'm doing this is, and of course I'm going to put the opacity all the way to 100%. The reason why I'm doing this is because now I'm going to bring in the exact same picture to the side again, and it will be snapped over there like that, but I'm going to snap to the drawing, use this snap to drawing function so I can get also the scale, and we just position it like exactly on the same spot. But now I'm going to rotate this guy over here like that. And the positioning that I'm going to use is going to be like roughly the same. But in this case, I'm going to put the Y to be 0 and the X should be 400. So that way it will now snap to that location and I get my square correctly done. And depending on what you want to do, like to create an interesting effect, like if you're using the same picture, you can put them mirrored, because then the skyline will align correctly over here. And some people will not even realize that this is mirrored unless they really pay attention. And depending on the angles that you take your screenshot, for example, if I take a screenshot like this, like you might not even see that this is a mirror image or anything like that. You can either adjust your field of view angle over here, depending what you want to do, to kind of like represent it like that. Okay, so basically I'll just repeat that action like a couple times to create that kind of like square, right? So okay, let me see. Okay. Yeah, basically I will just finish this by putting like all the other 4 sides, while Javi, if you or Nikon is looking at the chat over there, if there are any questions, let me know. Okay, while I finish this.
Not at the moment. Actually, we do have a question that I think we missed related to the previous feature, and that's can you map textures and images to BIM models?
Not yet.
Mhm.
Like there is a way to force it with Blender, but it's just like you need to make so many steps to get that done that like might not be like very helpful. But this is something that our team is already kind of like working. It's in our roadmap for a kind of like a medium term development process. Okay, there you go. So you see like the things will not align properly over here. So if you want to like fake this connection a little bit more, you can just go and rotate the picture in Y by 180. So like now that we align properly, even though it's mirrored, and so on. Okay. So let me see, no other questions. Okay, so another thing that I think that will be interesting. Sorry, Nikan. Nikan?
No, sorry.
Okay,
I'll mute myself.
okay, cool. So another interesting way of using pictures is instead of just to create a horizon, is also to extend the map quickly. So I've seen this question a lot of times from customers is like, how I want to extend my map just for my scenario, or I want to show a distant area for lay down or access points, but I don't want to increase the map size and have to deal with like a bigger map and whatnot. So a quick way to do that is just to import a bigger image for that surround for the satellite picture, right? So in this case, I have imported over here on the second milestone. I have like a bigger image just to represent the an extension of this map, right? Because then I can like show elements in here without having to extend that map. And if you combine this with the instructions that I mentioned on the previous workshop for the 2D layout plan, we can also put like a massing over here on the top. And then when you look from a 2D view, you're gonna get the massing where you can place elements on top of that massing, like these annotations you see, like all these arrows, these kind of like the lines over here, the call outs and the zones are all placed on the massing just because I want to use that massing as a layer to host my annotations. And they are showing only on this milestone, and then on the next milestone I can remove them all. And now I have like a way to show just like an extended area for access points or like other locations. So over here, like just showing like in the green line, what is the actual map size. And then we can go and place resources like these arrows over here on top of my massing to show the access of trucks and then the project area where you're gonna rest over here at the fun beach area and so on and so forth. And then if you go to the next milestone, you can simply remove all of these objects and show them only at this stage. And I'm just selecting these objects and I'm hitting my Control E shortcut to make them go away at the next milestone, as you can see, right? So this is an interesting way to like do things quicker and also just for this scenario and maybe just for that milestone, and then the next one you don't have like the elements that you don't want. Cool. So now you have like a view where this is bigger than the rest. Okay. So also, if you're working with projects that are bigger than 5 kilometers aside, you can also use some extensions with more images to show other elements on the surroundings. Of course, there's no map terrain on these areas, so you won't be able to create like excavation, and there might be some other limitations in relation to tools that are projected on the ground and so on and so forth. But it's a way for you to work quickly and extend your map just for like a couple of like specific shows. Okay. Okie dokie. So yeah, so this combined with that, you get like a very interesting image. Like for example, in this one that I did over here, like quickly, if I wanted to do a bigger area or like make my horizon further, I could also bring this image here to extend to fill in the gap in between my map and the horizon image. Okay, so this will allow you to take like interesting screenshots and put in like on your plan and so on, like this, where you have like that interesting background over there. Cool, Leo. Okay, so going on to the next tricks over here. So probably you guys noticed that I created some zones over there with lines surrounding it. So for this, oops, my things are, there you go. Oh, okay, cool. So to create zones that will have like a line like this, super simple. Like this is just because I'm just showing this because a couple customers have asked this question. So you can simply go in here and create a zone. Let's say that you're evil Halloween person, you're gonna demolish this whole neighborhood over here without like further notice. So we can select this whole area, create a zone, and as you can see, my zone is placed on top of my massing over there, right? Because that's what it's being hosting my sketches. And then I can go in and say that this is gonna be demolished. And now I can go and place my line again, like my line, whenever I'm drawing this, if I'm gonna be hosting my sketch on top of my massing instead of the map, right? So when I'm looking from a 2D view. So now to create that line around it, super easy. I'm gonna simply click on project, select my zone, and then my line is created, you know? So that way you can create zones with like an outer perimeter with a different color, with a different dash style, and so on and so forth. And when you place your callout over here, also this callout is going to be hosted on your massing over there on the top, and demolish. So you can go and do your callouts. So an interesting thing about the callouts is that just today I saw a demo from our team, and we are actually having a new way of making this face to the screen permanently, right? So there will be a little toggle over here where you're going to turn it on, and then this call out will be facing your screen from whatever angle that you look. Because right now, if I rotate this call out like this and detach it, like it doesn't face my screen, doesn't adapt to the angle of my screen, right? But this is something that is coming where you're gonna have like a little toggle here that will allow you to keep that. So it's a step further for you to use just this callout and not the legacy callout anymore. Cool. Okay, so the next tip and tricks over here is just something that was requested by a customer that was working in a very complex terrain, kind of like excavation operations and whatnot. But the request was, how can I create a sloped fill or a sloped cut, like a cut with a slope on the sides or a fill with a slope on the sides, but also have it following the terrain. So I want to create a sloped fill, let's say, to show some stockpiles and make it follow the terrain, but I want to show the actual slope that represents a stockpile, right? And I want to keep it with a fixed, like a constant uh, height of 3 meters or something like that for the whole thing, right? So the way to do that would be kind of like using a quick workaround on the tool. So basically, we would do a fill, and I'm going to do my fill the way that I want over here with the shape that I want. And that fill, I'm going to create it with a height that is higher than what you want. If you want your fill to be 3 meters high, you can create the fill higher than that. So like I'm going to create my fill higher, like, I don't know, 6 meters over here. And as you can see over here, see how this fill is a straight, like from this point onwards. And the reason why this is happening is because when I created my fill, the first point that I selected to create my sketch is this point over here. So was this point. So the sketch defines what is the cap of your kind of like the sketch elevation here defines the cap of your slope. So if you just put this sketch elevation in a lower position, if you click over here and click on the lower position, basically this will just make the sketch start from that point onwards. And then your fill height, you can go in and do whatever you want over here. And I'm actually going to slope out from this. Okay. So there you go. So something like that. So you can adjust the shapes to like adapt to what you want, and then you put the top elevation here and whatnot. But what I really want is this field to have a 3 meter height cap. So what I'm gonna do here now is I'm gonna create a cut, but I cannot create a cut to a terrain. I want to create a cut to terrain, but if I create a cut to terrain over here and I do, I want to do the difference to bring this to 3 meters, like actually how high was my fill? my fill height was 11, and I want to put this cut to terrain to be like 3 meters down from that. If I do a cut to terrain and I do a 3 meters, like the reference when you do a cut to terrain is the actual terrain. So like a cut to terrain over here with a 3 meters is making this deeper, 3 meters deeper than the original grade. So what we want to do is I'm just going to adjust the sketch to make it a little bit bigger than that. So what I'm going to do is, since this value here is giving me 3 meters lower than original terrain, if I put this negative, it's going to give me a reference that is higher, 3 meters higher than the terrain, right? So this is like the little trick that you can do, is to put a cut to terrain with a negative value. And basically this will just cap that cut, instead of like 3 meters lower than the terrain, 3 meters higher than the terrain. Okay, so you can do exactly the same thing with a cut and a fill. So you can do a cut that is lower than what you want, right? Cut with a slope. And the only reason why I'm doing this is because I want the slopes, right? Because we cannot create cuts to a terrain or fill to a terrain with a slope, because it's too much. It's a very complex kind of like shape to be created because of the variations of the terrain. So if I create a cut depth over here, let's say to a elevation of 75 meters, and I slope this out, and I want to make sure that the bottom part of this cut is an offset from my original terrain, I will then create a fill. And again, if I create a fill to terrain and I put 3 meters here, this 3 meters is going to be above the original grade. But if I put -3, it's actually making it 3 meters, filling it up to 3 meters below the terrain. Okay. So that's the little trick that we can use to create these sloped operations following the shape of the terrain. Okay,
Hey,
cool.
Pedro, also you could sketch a zone on there and texture it to make it look like different types of dirt as well, right?
Yes, yes. So
If you
if we
wanted to.
go in here,
If you wanted to.
I want you. So I'm gonna go here and create a zone onto this guy. Again, this is for premium users. So you will go in and project this in the terrain, and I will go and put like a dirt ooze over there. Cool. So it looks like this. Okay, so now for the last part of our session here today, I just want to remember a couple of things to most of people, because I've seen that some people are missing this on our support calls. First thing that I want to remember is lock references and images for like that you import. So if you bring in something that you want use just as a reference, and you don't want that object to be clickable, like you see how when I click on this, I'm selecting the whole drawing that is projected over there. I don't want to keep clicking on the ground and selecting something, right? So I will lock this image here, and that will keep me from selecting it every time that I click on it once. Same thing for like the models that you just bring this as a reference. You don't want them to be selectable and so on. So you can lock them, and then you will click on them, and then we won't select. If you double click, it will select. If you right click, we also select. And another thing is that you can also temporarily hide these elements even if they are locked. Okay, just a quick reminder of that. Another quick reminder is the projection of drawings on the terrain. When you import a drawing to a scenario, let's say that I'm going to import any drawing to this scenario over here, any image. Okay, so when you import an image or a drawing to a scenario, you always have to remember that this image is not flush with the ground. I've seen this happen several times with several different users. Basically, they don't realize that this image is not exactly flat with the ground. So they start placing things here. So like I'm gonna start placing my spider boom lift. And when I place this, I'm placing on top of the image, but not on the ground. And this image is floating, right? So if I hide this image, then you get a floating object. So it you need to do two of these things. Either you make sure you project this on the terrain, because then that image will be flush with the terrain, and then every time that you place something, it will be placed on the terrain. Or when you're placing your objects, hide the image so you can place them on the terrain. Okay. And the last, remember this that I want to show is, remember to try the new milestone in presentation layout. Most of you in the call probably noticed that my milestone view here is not, my milestone manager is not over here on the top. It's showing over there in the bottom as a timeline. And the reason why is because I have on my settings this thing turned on, edit presentation as a timeline, which simply makes my milestone manager that is by default over here on the top go over there to the bottom. And this will like give me more access to milestones and so on. Like I can flip for my milestones quicker. I can see more information in my view. So this is going to be the next layout. cmBuilder is going to be fixed at some point. So I encourage everyone to start using right away, because also this improves the way that you create your presentation. So now when you go into presentation mode, as you can see, you can still do editing in the view. So with this new mode, when you turn on the presentation mode, you still have access to your editing capabilities and a bunch of like elements, so you can add objects and still work on your scenario while you're doing your presentation. So if you remember that you need to add something, adding a zone, an annotation, or something like that, you don't need to get out of presentation mode and then go back into it. You can do things like while you're working on the presentation mode. So we are adding more and more capabilities with this new presentation and milestone as a timeline. So I really encourage you all to use it like that. So remember this, because otherwise you're gonna get busted. Ha! I love my jokes. So fun. So in the end over here, um,
Kind of a good joke.
right?
Please.
Right? I
Yeah,
like it.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that everybody's laughing the hell out of it. Javi, you're muted.
Everyone's rolling on the floor right now.
You muted Javi.
You're muted.
You muted Javi. Yeah, just
No,
us
I'm not.
listen to them. Yeah. See that?
I'm
That's
not
how you
muted.
get a tough crowd.
Knee slappers.
There you go. So I'll recap for our session today. We talked about new navigation modes. We talked about fill with selective slopes and new notification settings. And in terms of tricks, how you can develop best practices doing your splits, creating massings, different uses for image overlays, creating zones with lines, sloped operations following the terrain, and just a quick reminder over there to lock your references, project your drawings, and use the new milestone presentation layout. Cool. Okay, so this is the end of our session today, and you guys are free to stick around and ask questions and make fun of our faces. Cool. Let me cue the
Saying we don't
music.
look fabulous. Is that what you're implying here?
I
That we don't look
I look
amazing.
fabulous. I do look fabulous.
Yeah, I've realized that blonde is not my color for sure.
Yeah.
You're a natural blonde. There's a question from YL.
Yeah, we do.
Next week, YL, the new walk mode and fly mode should be ready on Monday. Yeah. Oh, there. Yeah. It's
Exactamundo. Someone raised their hand over there. I think it was Adam. I'm not sure if it was by mistake or not. But Adam, if you want to drop your questions on the QA, it would be best. Woo! Awesome. Thanks from England. Nice. We'll be there in 2 or 3 weeks, Stuart, for the London Beauty Expo. So if you're
We're gonna
planning
get
on
together.
coming,
Try to
yes.
go meet with you, Stuart. Maybe we do a site walk.
Yes. Although all of our European customers, UK, if you want to join us in our booth on the London Beauty Expo, please come. Okay, so I'll cue the music. Oh, this is not the music that I was expecting.
We got one more. How would you handle objects
Oh,
that need to
sweet.
come back into the scene in a later milestone? There you go.
Oh yeah. So for
Turn off
that,
the music. Turn off the music.
turn off the music. Cue the music. Okay, so to do that, what I would suggest is that you use one of our kind of like tricks over there from this guy over here. If you want this object, let's say I want this object here. I wanted to go into like I want to show this in this milestone, but on the next milestone, I wanted to go away, and on the next one, I wanted to come back. What I would do is basically on the milestones that I want to keep it hidden, you just move this guy on the ground. But you have to have it as a dynamic object so you can have more positions over time. So move it on the ground for the milestones that you don't want to see it. And then on the next one, we can just go and bring this guy back up with the job to surface. Cool. So it's a nice trick that can save you a lot of time, right? And yeah, now if I go back and forth over here, that object's there and it goes back, and also saves you some time by like not having to manage too many objects by doing copy paste and kind of like start and end dates. Also, if these objects have animations, you don't need to keep like doing a bunch of animations for them. And
And
question from
Street is
Street.
asking,
Yeah.
yeah, it was in our original agenda, in our
Yeah.
tentative agenda.
I had to move it out just because like other things were a little bit more relevant compared to like the questions that I get every day. But I promise that I'll show that on the next workshop. However, the quick question is just filter them in Revit and export the IFC files from there, right? So this is going to become a feature actually. Like we plan to have a feature where when you import the Revit file, you will be able to select which phases you want to convert. But as of now, the quick answer is just that you would filter them in IFC in Revit first and then export the IFC file. Okay. Awesome.
Pedro knew
Let's
that. Pedro's gamifying the algorithm, getting people to sign up for the Revit phases, and then pulling it from the agenda. Well done. You're a future
I learned
YouTuber. You just don't even know it.
I learned from the master. You know this guy that does a Key Feature Friday video every in LinkedIn? Have you heard of
Never
that?
heard of him.
Okay, cool.
Never
I'll
heard of
I'll
him.
send over to you. Okay, team. Thanks a lot for joining. And this is my cue to go out. See you then.
Thanks, everyone.